What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics. Thanks so much for being with me. If I look a little weird or red, it's because I'm niacin flushing at the moment. That's what's going on. I just took like 400 milligrams flush niacin. I do that every day. I'm going to talk about 9-methylbicarboline, and when it came onto the nootropics sort of radar, when it came onto my radar, what I've been able to use it for with clients, how I have seen it in conjunction with other chemicals, and we'll get into some of those chemicals if I, once I explain some of the regimens, how I've seen it repair people's brains at large scale. In the meantime, what supports this broadcast is a couple epic nootropic products. Go to livecortex.com. Get Cortex. Look, if you haven't tried Cortex, I made this for entrepreneurs because I am an entrepreneur and I was working on a previous company while formulating this. Not even for the intention of putting it out as a commercial stack, but I made this stack for myself. And I was like, do I take modafinil today or this? And more often than not, I chose the Cortex stack. It just has a way of synergizing the chemicals that are in it: iridine, CDP choline, artichoke extract, bacopa, and very particular formulations that turn the brain on in many ways, either by it singularly, or the better option is to get it delivered to your doorstep monthly at the same time for cheaper, $27.99 cheaper. Get auto ship at livecortex.com. And those of you that get Cortex, you reorder it constantly. You don't have to reorder it once you set auto ship up. It just does everything automatically. If you're new to nootropics, Nootropics Ground Zero is where you have to start. I mean, imagine having a video course that someone 15 years deep going on into using nootropics and working with clients all around the world, from big bankers to otherwise big executives to entrepreneurs and serious people, did a video course to show you how to use nootropics. That's Nootropics Ground Zero, and you can get that at livecortex.com. Last couple things. Look, if you're a young male business person or a middle-aged male business person, either entrepreneur or corporate, and you function pretty okay at the moment, but you want to see what it's like to function like Bradley Cooper Limitless status, you just want to get more done and feel what that feels like when your brain is firing on all cylinders, and you're able to induce certain states on cue. Like you have 5 hours of work to do. Like you have this batch of productivity to engage in. You're not really feeling like it. Imagine having stacks formulated that are tailored to your brain, because that's important, right? You got to go through the process of tailoring stacks and adjusting them and getting them perfect for the person. But if you had a list of 30 of them to do whatever it is you need to do productivity wise, how much more productive could you be? How much more revenue could your company do? How much more moving in the direction of promotion and otherwise, operative tasks in corporate could you get done? Work with me, 3.5 months or 6 months. That is the basis of what we do in those consults. But at the same time, optimizing with nootropics may be somewhat futile if there are energy issues. So if there are energy issues, we work on those too. It's a full-on energy and brain optimization consult. If you got the budget and you're a hard charger, it is absolutely worth it. Go get those consults at livecortex.com. Okay, so I just want to have this conversation about 9-methylbicarboline. It came on the radar in the general nootropic sphere probably about 2.5 years ago, and that's when it came on my radar. Generally, anything that is new that comes out, I tend to sort of see people talking about it right away and kind of get into it, order some, and start experimenting, etc. It's classified as a research chemical, and what that really means is it's not approved by the FDA. It has gone through some clinical trials with humans, and it just isn't a drug. In the end, paracetam is sort of the same way. Paracetam was never actually approved by the FDA, and so it's considered a supplement, right? But it was intended to be a drug. It's an actual drug, right? A very safe, non-toxic drug, just like 9-methylbicarboline. And, research chemicals do all kinds of different things. On the racetam side, on the paracetam side, as we talked about really recently, improving oxygen uptake and corpus callosum integration, hemispheric integration of the brain, optimizing muscarinic choline receptors, etc. And 9-methylbicarboline, what it does is, so you have dopamine, right, projecting from the ventral tegmental area to all these different regions of the brain, the frontal cortex, the striatum. And in order for that signal to be received in a way that gives the organism, the person, motivation and energy, kind of like what dopamine serves to do and drive, well, it has to bind to the receptors, the various dopamine receptors that are sort of responsible for that behavior. What 9-methylbicarbonate does is it opens up the density and improves the receptor, the ligand binding to the receptor. So dopamine's binding to various dopamine receptors. That's what 9-methylbicarbonate does. And over time, that there's a process called upregulation on the receptor side. That's what 9-MEBC does. It upregulates dopamine receptors. And there are many places in your brain where you have dopamine receptors, and there are many places in the brain that the receptors may not be functioning the way that they're supposed to. Just like fully open, density is good, open to receive the transmission from dopamine. And if they're not up to par, you will have deficits in motivation, and you'll have deficits in energy, and you'll have deficits in drive, and you may have depression. There's all kinds of things, because it sort of runs the gamut what could happen if dopamine receptors aren't functioning correctly. So let me just break down an example for you. Or I guess I should just talk about the dose range. Dose range depends. The range really is, I would say, 15 to 80 milligrams. 15 milligrams to 80 milligrams. And, there's a lot of use cases with that dose range, and it just sort of depends on what you may want to do, what you're trying to do, and how long you think it's going to take. So I'm going to give you an example of a hard-charging businessman who came to me somewhere around a year ago and had been taking prescription stimulants, Vyvanse, Adderall, all of the other methylphenidate sort of analog-esque chemicals. And they were working for quite a long time. The person had built a substantially big and lucrative business and built a good life for himself. But what started happening is, as typically happens with those drugs like Adderall, is he started getting diminishing returns. So he could take the Adderall at the same dose and even try to higher the dose, but the level of productivity the level of energetic, I want to be productive brain performance that he used to get from it just started quickly waning. And it got to the point where he just sort of was addicted to taking it just because he took it for so long, and it gave him something, and his baseline became absolutely miserable. No motivation, no sex drive. It started affecting his EQ and sensation, which those of you that have PSSD are very familiar with, because the mechanisms are similar. You work on the dopamine side of PSSD, you're going to get results. And his life became just sort of a miserable existence. So he came to me for help. There were a couple issues, right? So coming off of Adderall, obviously there's this lacking in the desire to do anything, But at the same time, there was profound anxiety. So we sort of had to work on the anxiety factor and work on the dopamine receptor factor, but also work on dopamine projection in the VTA. So we tried a bunch of things. We had lemon balm in the mix, which is a very effective chemical that is basically inhibiting GABA transaminase. It's a GABA breakdown enzyme, so that you can keep more GABA around, and that sort of helped stabilize the anxiety that this person was having. So, and that removed a little bit of that lack of motivation, just a little bit. So that was sort of one thing. We brought bromantane in the mix, which is basically tyrosine hydroxylase, dopa decarboxylase, expression fostering. So those are dopamine conversion enzymes. One of them serves also as a serotonin conversion enzyme. A lot of people don't know that. Their brain chooses what to do with it based on what you need. And then 9-methylbicarbonate. We had some other compounds in that were essentially forcing the release of dopamine. We were targeting the production of dopamine via diet and via some supplementation with L-Dopa, actual L-Dopa, but not a whole lot. We just wanted to sort of recover the system, and that takes time. You can't just feed yourself L-Dopa and expect that to recover, the system. Our dose on 9-methylbicarbonate in conjunction with it was about 25 milligrams of bromantane daily, 50 milligrams dynamine daily. Intermittent use of lemon balm, intermittent use of another GABA-esque chemical called picamilin, was 30 milligrams. 30 milligrams 9-methylbicarbonate once a day in most days, and sometimes twice a day. So it would end up being 60 milligrams. I'd have him take 30 milligrams, 9-methylbutyrcarboline with a stack in the morning, and then 9-methylbutyrcarboline at 30 at like 5 p.m. This was actually the first test for me after I had understand, is that right? What it does to people and what its mechanisms of action are when it actually gets into your brain, what it is doing. But this was my first shot at actually using this with a client who had that disclaimer, right? And was just willing to do anything to get better. Over the course of 2 months of that regimen, that pretty much stayed the same. I mean, we may have altered it a tad, over the course of that time, and brought in some other chemicals just as on an experimental basis, mostly because he sort of requested, hey, is there anything else that we can bring in? And I was like, well, no, actually these things take time, and we shouldn't, but okay, to entertain this for you so that you understand, hey, you just got to sit back and let this process play out. Brought some other compounds in. Over the course of 2 months, the sex drive started coming back, which again is just a weird side effect from taking Adderall, from messing with the dopaminergic system so long. Motivation to do business stuff, and that applies to whatever it is that you're into in life. Motivation to do that started coming back. The general pleasure for things like music or otherwise things that may have given the person pleasure started to come back, and that was another thing that was basically gone when we started working together. I mean, no pleasure for things. Imagine that existence, yeah. I mean, it couldn't be good. All those things started coming back. We doubled down, modified the doses on 9-MEBC and bromontane just a little bit over the course of the next 3 months. So in total, I worked with this gentleman for 6 months, but it took us 5 in total. And not only was this guy back to baseline, but he felt as if he was taking the Adderall, like when he first started taking Adderall, he felt as if he could achieve that brain performance again, but just with research chemicals and with nootropics. And to the point where, there would be days, because I would have him cycle off of these things, where he didn't take 9-MEBC or bromontane or dynamine or anything, just drank some caffeine, and the caffeine made him feel like he was taking Adderall. Just the caffeine alone. And there's something to say to that. What I've learned over time is that by sensitizing the dopamine receptors, you also sensitize your stimulant response. Your response to stimulants, which is pretty cool. If you ever want to do that, 30 milligrams, 9-MEBC for a couple months, should do that if all other things are right. And you've got a good regimen in there, and you're sort of looking at some of the other factors. But it was at the point where regular stimulants that people just get desensitized to, like caffeine, was making this guy function awesomely. This isn't a promotional video about 9-MEBC. This is a story of a client of mine who was able to get his brain back and his life back via really just a couple chemicals, and one of the major heavy hitters being 9-methylbutyrcarboline. When people lose certain aspects of brain function or what they consider motivation, etc., it has to do with neurotransmission and ligand receptor binding, capacity, optimization. It has to do with the status of receptor binding in a lot of cases. And there are many nootropics that target all of the neurotransmitter receptor sites that are involved in and all of the behaviors that we exhibit, right? That we ultimately want to improve. And that's why working with nootropics the right way and research chemicals that are targeting, neurotransmitter receptor sites can really, really change your life. I mean, it can absolutely change your brain. It can change your personality. It can change your happiness. It can change a lot. That's why I'm so into this stuff. So that's 9-MEBC for you, man. Really, really cool example of this research chemical doing profound repair work on people. I've also seen it remove people's anxiety. How the hell is that possible, right? Just some sort of deficiency in dopamine transmission was causing them anxiety. I usually get 9-MEBC from science.bio, no affiliation. This isn't a promotional video. Just wanted to share that story. Probably best to get powder because you can weigh it out. I mean, you get a liquid solution too that sort of has a comparable dose range, in the liquid. but ultimately powder is always my first choice. Thanks so much for being with me, guys. Hope that's been helpful for you guys. So much more content to come. I mean, there's just like a litany of stuff that I want to talk about. People always ask me to talk about things in the comment section on the channel, so I write it down. And that list is like, at this point, 50 topics deep. So I'm just kind of going through the topics one by one. So there is more, and it sort of constantly self-generates. In the meantime, go support the broadcast. We get some epic nootropic products. Cortex stack, powerful pre-made stack. Can't say enough about it, right? Talk about turning on motivation and energy, because you're actually upregulating striatal D2 receptors with uridine in the Cortex stack. Very, very powerful nootropic stack. Get it at livecortex.com. Auto ship it. If you're comfortable with the stack and you know it resonates with you, just get it auto shipped to your doorstep every month. If you're new to nootropics, get Nootropics Ground Zero. You just got to stop and pull the trigger on that video course. It's pretty cheap. It's about an hour and 12 minutes long. I think it's exactly an hour and 12 minutes long. And it's very, very informative. And we give you many stacks. Get that at livecortex.com. You guys know the rest of the drill. Guys that have to race tests, we didn't talk about this before, VTP. Basically a consult with me that gives you tailored protocols to race free and total test based on your situation. VTP, do it at livecortex.com. And then again, look, if you're one of these people coming off of Adderall, that's one of the things we do in these 3.5 month or 6 month intensive consults. Or if you're a middle-aged or young business male, corporate or entrepreneur that wants to function at 150+%, you just want to see what it's like. Once you reach that level of extreme verbal fluency, central processing that is beyond anything, that beyond yourself when you were 18 years old, being able to tackle 9 hours straight of work, being able to function at a level that you didn't really think possible, you do not want to go back to functioning suboptimally. And it is a really awesome feeling. We will do that in these consults. Go get either 3.5 months or 6 months at livecortex.com. Again, typically the profile is a male business person, corporate or entrepreneur that just really, really wants to see what it's like to function like Bradley Cooper. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Talk to you next time.